Greetings and welcome, my fellow imperialists, to another episode of the semi-grand campaign, currently in Victoria 2. Right, on to the next game in the long line of games. I mean, technically, March of the Eagles should fit in between Europa Universalis 4 and Victoria 2, but nobody likes that game, so we'll just skip over it. I mean, all we're really missing is the Napoleonic Wars, and nobody really cares about those. Right, so Victoria 2. Arguably, this is probably one of the Paradox games I've put the most time into, but understand the least of. Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, I know how to play, just really don't know how to play well or to, game the system all that much. Also, I will be playing without mods, in case anyone wonders why I'm not playing this with HFM or HPM. I just simply have not put the time in to learn those mods. I don't have those mods on my system at the moment anyway. And yeah, I understand the vanilla game better. So, that's what we're gonna play with. So you lose a little bit of flavor, maybe some tweaks here and there. That's all there is to it. Let's get into the map. The map of the world at 1836. It's quite a mess still. Alright, so let's catch up on the state of the Dutch Empire at this point. Calling it an empire is a bit of an overstatement, because the Dutch really weren't all that powerful at this point in time. I mean, they were still a significant presence, don't get me wrong, but empire we were definitely no longer, if we ever were. Because, in the approach to the 18th century and all that, we lost a lot of influence on the seas because we stopped being able to beat the English at sea. That's no good for a trade empire if you cannot defeat the English. And there's always the problem of France, who just marched straight into us and we couldn't resist because it's France. Really. At that point in time, I don't think there was any other nation that really could stand up to France if they actually put their foot forward. I mean, it took an entire coalition of nations to bring France down in the first place. And even now, at this point in time, France is still a very formidable force that I have to be afraid of. Because that's just the way it is. Now, this game plays from 1836 to 1935. During that time, the Dutch had 3 kings and 1 queen. Figure I may as well go over that period in a bit. Although we should probably get into the point of why are we a kingdom now when we were a republic before? Because, well, in a word, France happened. They had a bit of a revolution, and the United Provinces said to the coalition, sure, we'll join in. Gonna be fun. And then France said yoink, and took us all of our land, turned us into the Batavian Republic, which is basically just the Dutch version of a revolutionary republic, I believe. I'm not entirely sure how it worked, because I didn't look it up. Afterwards, Napoleon happened, and he reorganized the Dutch lands, in particular, what was already the United Provinces, as well as the Austrian Netherlands, into one kingdom. And he gave that to his, I forgot what, I think it was his brother, Louis Bonaparte. Yeah, I wrote that down, but who ruled us as king from 1806 to 1810. And, well, I should probably mention that, well, Louis tried. He wasn't very good at it, I think, per se, but he tried. And he really did want to see himself as a Dutch king. He declared himself Dutch, taking on the name Lodewijk as the Dutch version of Louis. He also made his court speak Dutch and learn it and all that. And he actually stood up for us when Napoleon came and demanded that we supply troops, the Netherlands supply troops for his armies, and he said no. At which point he was pretty much promptly removed by Napoleon, and he went into exile. So yeah. Fun fact about his reign: as he was learning Dutch, he obviously wasn't very fluent in it, and he declared himself to be the Koning van Holland, which to Dutch ears sounded very much like he declared himself to be the rabbit of Holland. Konijn van Holland. But, you know, I give the man points for trying at the very least. But anyway, so after the Napoleon stuff happened, let's just get loaded into the game, because there's a lot of history to go over. Ignore that. After that, we get to the point of when the Dutch family came, the Dutch royal family was instated, because essentially it was whatever was left of the family of Orange after they left to Britain in hiding once the French invaded. Which leads us to King Willem I, who was coronated in 1815. I didn't put down the exact dates, but that's not the point. So, King Willem I saw himself as an absolute monarch. Something that the game considers us to still be, an absolute monarchy. Which at this point he probably still was. And essentially he did not believe in having a parliament or any other ruling body. His will was law. And in his will he decided to industrialize, in particular in the southern Netherlands, which was slightly better developed, probably. But he did not really, he didn't really foresee how his reign would be perceived by the southern Netherlands, which is what we see here. So, yeah. Because they did not like a Protestant king in charge of their nation, because this portion had been Catholic the entire time as being part of Austria. And, well, they did not really want to give it up. And yeah, being absolute monarchs, you tend to want to have your people have your religion. Which is another side note. My province of North Brabant, which is not really represented here because for some reason it's part of Gelderland, which is yeah. Anyway, wasn't really developed at all, even by the United Provinces back in the day. And it took Napoleon coming up here and wanting to have roads for his armies for us to get actual roads. So, you know, parts of the Netherlands were actually quite happy that Napoleon came. William I reigned until 1840, when he abdicated in favor of his son, after he had to, well, accept a constitution, essentially a constrainment of his power, and he couldn't bear that. Which kind of gives you an idea of what the man was like. This was after, of course, the Belgians revolted in 1830, I believe. Did not write that down, but I think it was 1830. And, well, the king decided, no, none of that. Summon the army, take that back. Which, according to my history teacher, was actually the last time the Dutch declared war, or went on an aggressive war, rather, against another nation. So then the great powers of Europe stepped in and said, you can't do that. We declare that Belgium can just be an independent nation. At which point, you know, There's not much we could do about that. Which most amusingly, they decided this in London without having a representative from either Belgium or the Netherlands present. Just to give you an indication of how politics worked back in those days. Which is also represented in game with the Treaty of London, which is the scrap of paper. Yeah. Anyway, Willem I became very wealthy of that. Okay, I think he was a millionaire by modern day standard anyway. Willem II reigned from 1840 to 1849. Relatively short reign, wasn't very healthy, and very tragic. Although, from whatever I could read on Wikipedia, because yeah, these kings were not heavily discussed during history, as far as I can remember them. So he liked to build stuff. So that was good. I like kings that want to build stuff, good stuff. And then we come to Willem III. Yeah, who reigned from 1849 to 1890. So quite a while. Now this was a king who could not accept that you couldn't do certain things. And he also did not like that he had to obey the constitution, that his powers were limited. He had to fight a lot of that. He was often referred to as King Gorilla, based on his on what he did, his manners. And one particular story that was told about him that I had heard is that Willem III owned a castle on the river, not entirely sure where, with a balcony looking out over the water, of course. And often, when boats passed, he came out and showed them what it meant, showed people the member of the royal family. Essentially, he walked out onto the balcony naked. Just to give an idea of how little the man cared about decorum and all that. Presumably. I mean, I don't know exactly. I just know the man was a bastard. By all intents and purposes, nobody really liked him. Except for maybe his wife, Emma. And when Willem III died in 1890, the next queen, Wilhelmina, because, you know, why change the naming convention, was a little bit too young. She was only 8 years old, I believe, at the time. So Emma took over as regent, and then Wilhelmina essentially reigned from 1890 to 1948, which is the end of the scope for this game. Alright, but none of that is really important. What is the goal of this campaign? What are we seeking to do? We want to restore the Netherlands to greatness. Probably not become a republic again. I mean, we could technically become a republic if we can find the right rebels, but there's currently no rebels that want that. So yeah. Overall, the nation is fairly conservative. A little bit of liberalism. Some were reactionaries. Not much we can do about that. At least we have got some positive money coming in. The Netherlands does own several provinces, like Dutch Guiana, which we traded against Manhattan back in the day. We also own several islands. For some reason we own this little piece of Dutch Ghana. And when we were invaded by France, basically our colonies were given over to Britain for safekeeping. And then Britain, when we were restored, said, yeah, we're gonna keep this one. So that's why you have Boers in this area. As well as the nations of Oranje and Transvaal, which are, they're not Dutch per se, they're just related to us. Although, admittedly, what claim they have over the land is tenuous. Anyway, and of course the crown of our possessions, Indonesia. Although I believe this is still called the East Indies at this particular point in time. And we only have to compete with the Portuguese for our foothold in this area, really. Well, and some isolated ports in British Malaya, but, you know, that's not really of a concern. And I believe that's all the holdings we have, I remember. They're of importance. Alright, so we want to become a great naval power again. A great global power. We want to be a big partner in the scramble of Africa. Which will be indeed quite a scramble and not scripted like in HFM or something. Because, yeah, I know, that's how it was done in real life. The great nations of Europe came together in a conference and decided to take a ruler to the map and said, you can have this, you can have this. And somehow Belgium ended up with the Congo. Our first order of business actually is to restore order to Belgium. We do have a CB for that. But at the moment we cannot act on that because they are in the sphere of the United Kingdom and currently we are no match for the UK. The UK also doesn't like us. But yeah, the UK has got lots of brigades in comparison to us. We are on the same tech, so we could maybe hold them off that way, but not likely. We also need to do a little bit of reorganizing because, you know, this army is just no good. No bueno at all. Nobody wants cuirassiers at this point in the time. So let's just get all the army together. Let's turn Rotterdam into the naval checkpoint and Amsterdam as the army, just so we don't get confused. But let's have a look at our nation proper. 58%, 59% literacy. That's quite good for this particular point in time. We have the adult male population is 4.8 million, although we have an absolute population of I know there's a way to see it. Well, we don't have all that many people, supposed to say. Just 4 million people that we... Oh no, our total population is 16 million. This includes the Indonesia, so don't be too overhyped on that, because we can't really get anything from there. Alright, so... First order of business is to stay alive. Towards that end, Prussia. Would you give me some protection, please? We also need to set up a research goal. Now, I need population, so I'm gonna go for medicine first, which is usually a staple of things you want to do at the start. And let's see, I also want to improve my education and administration, and let's just crank up the tariffs. We are slightly behind. I mean, the game, when you start up, says that you're a great power. That's a lie. We are a secondary power. I believe Belgium is actually almost as strong, which is kind of nuts that Belgium is actually almost as strong as us, but yeah, fair enough. Right, so let's get on the way. Russia accepted our offer, good. That should at least keep us safe from any sneak attacks. And let's get going with promoting bureaucrats. Bureaucrats will make sure that our provinces will be properly administered. So the state admin efficiency is actually quite high, so we don't have to do that much more. But basically, as long as the state administrative efficiency is high enough, you get the full amount of taxes and effective policing. So that helps keeps down revolt risk and revolts somewhat. Anyways, that's enough for an introductory episode. Next time we'll actually start playing the game. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.